This was the moment Libya's arch-rivals were supposed to agree to a ceasefire. Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj and warlord KHALIFA HAFTAR in Moscow for a meeting brokered by Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But Haftar walked out at the last minute. The collapse of those talks has been a setback for international efforts to end the conflict. Many are now waiting to see whether leaders from 12 countries can achieve in Berlin what eluded Putin and Erdogan in Moscow and persuade rival factions to reach a truce.
What the Berlin conference is trying to do is get agreement between the states meddling in Libya to stop their support to the warring parties. The problem is that Western states are not ready to put pressure on Haftar's foreign supporters, in particular the UAE. So the promise is that the foreign meddlers will make in Berlin ring hollow.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel is pushing for a permanent ceasefire in Libya and implementing an arms embargo. But that may not be an easy task. Libya has been marred by an armed conflict for years. Haftar is leading an offensive to capture Tripoli. Backed by the UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, France and Russia, the general has brushed aside reconciliation efforts. He's intent on defeating his opponent al-Sarraj, Prime Minister of the internationally recognized government based in Tripoli.
Any talks taking place when Tripoli is under aggression is an absolute disrespect for those who were killed for the sake of democracy. It is a disrespect for those forced out of their villages and cities.
Haftar has a list of demands. He wants armed factions in the west to disband and his Libyan National Army to take over. He's also made it clear that the military and maritime deal al-Sarraj's government signed with Turkey should be scrapped. For the leaders attending the Berlin peace talks, the Libyan conflict has reached a tipping point. Violence is on the rise and anarchy has paved the way for a wave of mercenaries to join the conflict, raising fears it could be prolonged and spill over, threatening Europe's security. That's why the international community is determined to end war in Libya. Ahelbarra, Al Jazeera, Berlin.
Anas Al-Gamati is a political analyst and director of the Tripoli-based SADC Institute. He joins us now live from London. Good to have you with us, Anas. Given all that we've just heard, what, if anything, can we expect from this conference tomorrow?
Absolutely nothing. In the shortest way possible. If you look at the last 24 hours alone, a violation of the arms embargo in Abu Ghraib, an airstrike committed by Haftar. 24 hours ago, the oil crescent shut down, taking off half of Libya's oil offline, marking 6 months, by the way, of the last time that a Libyan in Benghazi tried to request a ceasefire. The Libyan elected member of parliament, Siham Sargewa, who was kidnapped 6 months ago and is now the anniversary of her kidnapping and potential death. So now we're looking at a scenario where, and in addition to this, by the way, and I shouldn't forget this, over the last 4 or 5 days, huge shipments from Abu Dhabi's Special Forces base to be made through Egypt and Eritrea into eastern Libya. It doesn't look like they're preparing for a peace talk. It doesn't look like they're preparing for a ceasefire. It looks like they're preparing for another offensive. And that's the danger here, is that all of this illusion, trying to bring Putin there, the assessment that Putin was the strong man that was really giving Haftar all of this support, Putin couldn't get him to sign. And that was the distraction. The real danger here is that the military support and the diplomatic support that has been given to Haftar, not only in the last 9 months, but over the last 5 years, has been given by France, which has effectively gagged the UN mission from essentially sanctioning, condemning and criticizing Haftar, when Antonio Guterres, the chief of the UN, witnessed the offensive on April 4th, but also has been giving a diplomatic immunity to his backers in Egypt and the UAE to continually violate the arms embargo over the last 9 months, over the last 5 years. What could have happened in Berlin could have easily happened on a Skype conference over the last 9 months. What has changed today? There is no new dynamic in the UN Security Council. There is no new dynamic in the EU. This is an attempt by Europeans to demonstrate that they want to do something, but not a real attempt to actually solve the problems, which are very, very simple.
So how badly will this reflect on the Europeans if this doesn't go well tomorrow, if they walk away with nothing?
Well, today Libya is a headache, but tomorrow it's a danger, because the migration crisis that plagued Europe only 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that led to the Brexit debate here and vote here, that led to the rise of the far right and Lega Party in Italy and Germany and Austria and Poland. Those things emerged after Libya's last migration crisis. Today it's a nuisance, but tomorrow it is a massive, massive danger in Libya's or in Europe's southern neighborhood. That's the problem here. We can't expect anything. I sound like a broken record, but it is a broken problem. It's something that nobody wants to solve, and it's been broken by members of the international community that have absolutely no intent on ripening any of the local factions. We already know that Sarraj was willing to sign the deal because he signed it in Turkey and left. He signed it under pressure from Turkey and left Moscow, but Haftar didn't. What would have changed in the last week, apart from an arms embargo violation again, a huge airstrike on Abu Ghraib only an hour ago, and the shutting down of Libya's natural resources in the last 24 hours. It's gotten worse since they last tried to broker peace.
You say that no one wants to solve this. I mean, Turkey's president wants to have a go, though. I mean, he's got troops on the ground there in Libya, hasn't he?
He's had a go at trying to defend the GNA in Tripoli, the UN-backed government, but a UN-backed government cannot rely on the UN Security Council that brought it to life. The UN Security Council has a very important role that goes beyond the role that Turkey can play and Germany can play because they're not members of the UN Security Council. The members of the UN Security Council are the US, UK, France, Russia and China. And one of those members is essentially trying to give diplomatic immunity for Haftar to continue to not only commit war crimes in the way that he's been investigated for the last 5 years, but to continue his offensive. It's simple. We've been distracted for the last 4 months by the idea and illusion of Russian support there because Putin invited him to Moscow. Putin's never met Haftar. Haftar left Russia because he couldn't meet Putin. So I don't understand how we're still discussing the role that Russia plays when essentially the actors are simple. France giving diplomatic immunity, Egypt and the UAE giving military support. If they want to solve it, it's that conversation they should start with. They shouldn't start by playing a game of Russia's smoke and mirrors in Berlin and expecting people to buy it. This is a 9-year problem that has been essentially the same for the last 5 years. It's not a repeat. It's not a repeat unless we want to make it a repeat.
And that's really good to talk to you. Many thanks indeed. Anas Al-Gamati there in London.
Thank you.